this interview with Suse Wiles, and let me get back to the photo because the photo's amazing. The photo's great. You look at this photo and you think those are the people I want in charge of my country. You got Suse Wiles, JD Vance, Marco Rubio's there, Caroline Leavitt. You've got Stephen Miller, Dan Scavino. They're all there in the room and they're all hanging out and they're just large and in charge, right? They all look. Nobody looks like they're unhappy, but nobody looks like they're happy. Everybody looks like they're the most serious person in the entire world, and they're doing things that is just, you know, what do you call it? Amazing. So I guess that would be the word. And so they take this photo and they put it up there and I go, this is going to be a great article. But then when you start reading it, even the headline, Suse Wiles, JD Vance, and the Junkyard Dogs, the White House chief of staff on Trump's second term. Part 1 of 2. Throughout the first year of Donald Trump's second administration, Vanity Fair writer Chris Whipple has interviewed Wiles amid each moment of crisis. This insider's account joins a portfolio of portraits for an unflinching up-close look at power and peril. On the morning of November 4th, 2025, an off-year election day, White House Chief of Staff Suse Wiles was meeting in the Oval Office with the president and his top advisors, men she calls her core team. Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Stephen Miller, Deputy Chief of Staff. The agenda was twofold: ending the congressional filibuster and forcing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro from power. As she related it later, President Donald Trump was holding forth on the filibuster when Wiles stood up and started for the door. Trump eyed her. "Is this an emergency that you have to leave?" he demanded. It was nothing of the sort, but Wiles left Trump guessing. She replied, "It's an emergency. It doesn't involve you." With that, according to Wiles, she departed the Oval. Now, even just that line makes it seem like she thinks she's bigger than anyone else, or she thinks that she's above the president of the United States, or, you know, there's all these ways they want people to read into that kind of information. There's all these things they want people to read into all of that. But basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to make her out to be something that she's totally not, and the cabinet to be in some kind of disarray. Now, there was one part of this article, I'm going to be honest with you, if this is true, I'm behind her all the way. The chief of staff criticizes the attorney general. Trump tapped Wiles after she managed his 2024 campaign. She is known for shunning the spotlight, so it is rare for her to speak as extensively and openly as she did about the president to the magazine, which published its lengthy interview with her and other members of the White House staff and the cabinet. Wiles has been speaking to Vanity Fair since just before Trump took office last January. Asked about Epstein, Wiles said she hadn't tracked the public focus on whether all these rich, important men went to that nasty island and did unforgivable things to young girls. She said she has read the Epstein files and that Trump is not in the file doing anything awful. He and Epstein were friends before they had a falling out. Wiles criticized Bondi's handling of the case, going back to earlier in the year when she distributed binders to a group of social media influencers that included no new information about Epstein that led to even more calls from Trump's base for the files to be released. "I think she completely whiffed on appreciating that was the very targeted group that cared about this," Wiles said of Bondi. "First, she gave them binders full of nothingness, and then she said that the witness list or the client list was on her desk. There is no client list, and it sure as hell wasn't on her desk." That was her I'll be honest with you, I kind of am in agreement. If that's what she said about Pam Bondi, I'm here for it. I didn't like that Pam Bondi gave those binders full of nothingness to all of those social media influencers. I'm not happy that Bondi said that the file was on her desk when clearly it wasn't. I think a lot of people would agree with the fact that Pam Bondi overplayed her hand or underplayed her hand or just did it all wrong. I think basically just she messed it all up. And that is something that a lot of people would agree with. The other thing she talked about was I don't believe, but you know, maybe she talked about it. And here's the thing. Sometimes you say one thing and it comes out kind of different than what you mean it or how you thought you were going to say. Hey, who knows? But she was talking about Donald Trump and allegedly she said Trump has an alcoholic's personality, even though the president does not drink. But the personality trait is something that she recognizes from her father, the famous sports broadcaster Pat Summerall. High-functioning alcoholics, or alcoholics in general, their personalities are exaggerated when they drink. And so I'm a little bit of an expert in big personalities, she said. adding that Trump has a view that there's nothing he can't do, nothing, zero, nothing. On Venezuela, Wiles said Trump wants to keep pressure on Maduro. Thank you. Trump said he wants to keep pressure on Maduro until he cries uncle. And people way smarter than me on that say that he will. Her comment, though, seemed to contradict the administration's position that the strikes are about stopping drugs and saving American lives, not regime change. She said the administration is very sure we know who we're blowing up. By the way, I'm pretty sure, I'm pretty sure that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth and the rest of them, Marco Rubio, who's the national security advisor, I'm pretty sure they're not just blowing people out of the water who legitimately are not drug runners. Right? They're not just blowing boats out of the water and going, we should probably check on who was in that. No, on the contrary. They know exactly who's in the boat. They know exactly what's happening with the drugs. They know exactly what's going on. And they are doing something that is necessary to keep Americans safe, necessary to keep Americans alive. But the Democrats continue to try and thwart this effort, and they try to make Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump and the rest of them out to be war criminals of war. These are war crimes that they're committing. President Donald Trump's a criminal. Pete Hegseth is just murdering people clinging helplessly to the side of a boat. That still is coming up. In fact, Tim Burchett there was a big meeting on Capitol Hill, and Congress and the Senate, they all went to go meet with Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, and they were talking about these boat strikes specifically and whether or not there were innocent people in these boats, or if these are actual criminal, if it's criminal behavior, whatever it is. And Tim Burchett, he posted videos going into and coming out of the meeting.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate you. Merry Christmas. Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett getting ready to go into a confidential meeting with Hegseth and Secretary Rubio. I got to throw my phone down here. They won't let me take it in because it's going to be secret, of course, but you can probably watch it on CNN if there's somebody leaks it out here in about 5 minutes. But anyway, it's about the drug boats, and everybody in the press is attacking Trump for doing what he said he was going to do, going after the dadgum drug runners. And we've lost more people to fentanyl than we did to Vietnam War. And we after 4 years of open borders, people dying. I know people that died. You know people that died. And these freaking drug dealers don't give a damn about this country. And I guarantee you there's a lot of them right now. When they get off those seats in those boats, they're just a V right there because their butt cheeks are pinched up thinking Trump's going to put a strike on them. And I hope he does. We need to stop it. So thank y'all for sending me here.
All right, there you go. So that's Tim Burchett going into the meeting going, we're going to go sit and we're going to talk about these drug people and blah, 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 blah. And then here he is leaving the meeting.
Hey, everybody. Tim Burchett just leaving the briefing with Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rubio and military leaders about the legality of these strikes on these drug dealers that are pumping poison into our streets. I was glad to hear it. It's actually a three-tier system. Can't go into all the details, but every step of the way there's lawyers making sure that what they're doing is legal. What the press isn't reporting is that there's several of these have just been introductions where they just seized the boats and the drugs and nobody got killed because one of those three areas was not did not fulfill that, so they just had to stop them. And guess what? Every one of them, they were carrying drugs, but they couldn't prove that they were part of a terrorist organization or otherwise. So I'm very very pleased. Oddly enough, I think they've killed it's less than 100 drug dealers or pushers or whatever you want to call them. In that, it's about averages, it seems like about a little over 3 people per strike, and in that time, you just can't imagine the thousands of people that have lost their lives or had to get Narcan and go back. But anyway, thank y'all for sitting here.
All right, so there you go. So a much more muted tone. He was all excited going into the meeting. He was all excited going into the briefing. He was like, oh, man, we're going to go blow these people out of the water. And then he comes out and he seemed a little bit more I would say, shocked. And I think the shock comes not from the strikes itself, but again, the information about, like he said, the people that are getting killed, the people that are getting tricked into taking fentanyl, or are having to take Narcan, or just dying, and the hundreds of thousands of people. And I think he comes out and he seems a little angered. Like, it seems like he's a little angry about the pushback that they're getting for these narco-terrorist strikes. It seems like he walked in there going, well, I'm all for this. And he walked out there going, man, I can't believe anyone's against this. And it's almost very troubling that the Democrats and the media would be pushing back so hard against President Donald Trump and Secretary Pete Hegseth, keeping us safe from people who are trying to kill us with fentanyl. Marco Rubio was very direct about it. Marco Rubio, not only the Secretary of State, but the National Security Advisor, as we've said before. Marco Rubio, he basically said, look, dude, here's the problem. We are going to keep doing this, and you guys can shut up about it.
To engage with Congress on this. We're headed to the House now to do a similar briefing and provide updates on this counter-drug mission, which is focused on dismantling the infrastructure of these terrorist organizations that are operating in our hemisphere, undermining the security of Americans, killing Americans, poisoning Americans. And this has been a highly successful mission that's ongoing and continued, and we're pleased to be here today to update Congress on how that's developing and how that's moving forward. As I said, I believe it's our 22nd, 23rd such engagement, certainly been at least the fourth or fifth that I've been involved in, and those will remain and be ongoing. Okay?
I would just echo that. It is the 22nd bipartisan briefing we've had on a highly successful mission to counter designated terrorist organizations, cartels, bringing weapons meaning drugs, to the American people and poisoning the American people.
Yeah. So what he says weapons, and then he says weapons meaning drugs. And that is something that something that you're going to hear a lot more of, because, much like the way the Democrats like to rephrase things and say one thing when they mean the other, the Republicans are actually doing a lot more of that as well. They're rephrasing things to make them seem, the Democrats rephrase things to make it seem like things are better than they actually are. For example, they call abortion women's health care. They call illegal aliens undocumented workers. They call weather climate change. Well, that's one where it makes it sound like it's worse, but you get the meaning. On the flip side of it, in Donald Trump's administration, what he does is he takes things and he calls them what they actually are, and it makes them sound worse than what we've been, like, for example, they've been called fishing boats, but President Donald Trump says, no, they're narco terrorists. They've been called undocumented workers. Donald Trump says, no, they're criminal thug gang members, MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, who are here illegally, and were released from the prisons in every country in the world, and the nut houses and everything else. So we're going to send them back there. That's kind of how he does it. Well, now President Donald Trump wants you to know that fentanyl is no longer a drug. Fentanyl is now a weapon of mass destruction.
Today I'm taking one more step to protect Americans from the scourge of deadly fentanyl flooding into our country. With this historic executive order I will sign today, we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction, which is what it is. No bomb does what this is doing. 200 to 300,000 people die every year that we know of. So we're formally classifying fentanyl as a weapon of mass destruction.
WMDs are back in the form of fentanyl. And that's why you heard Secretary of War Pete Hegseth refer to it as a weapon. He goes, these weapons, these drugs, these weapons of mass destruction, or drug-struction, I guess you would call them. They are now classified as such by President Donald Trump. And that will of course give him more power. And it will give here's the thing. When you classify a gang as narco-terrorists or a cartel as narco-terrorists, all of a sudden, terrorists, they get treated differently. They get blown out of the water without any kind of, usually without anyone complaining. When you call something a weapon of mass destruction that's designed to kill thousands and thousands of Americans, innocent American civilians, well, now all of a sudden you get more power to deal with that threat. And it's very interesting to me that no other president or no other lawmaker before this has ever suggested it, or at least has ever gotten to the point where it was a thing. If anyone really wanted to be effective on the war on drugs, declaring these things weapons of mass destruction and declaring the people who push them narco-terrorists would have been a great way to do it. But nobody did it. Nobody thought to do it until President Donald Trump and this incredible administration, again, that you see pictured here. Wait, do I have it? Yeah, that you see. I mean, these are the people right here. I guarantee Stephen Miller is behind calling these drugs weapons of mass destruction. I guarantee that this team of people right here, they're behind some of the most incredible and accurate depictions and communications you have coming out of the White House, like narco-terrorism, and so on and so forth. Now, as we said before, the Democrats not at all happy. Chuck Schumer was also at this briefing. Chuck Schumer was not happy. I mean, he's never happy. But Chuck Schumer was really not happy because he wanted to see the boat video. He wanted everybody in the Senate to see the boat video. And apparently, Pete Hegseth did not bring the boat video with him.
Okay, good morning. Look, I reiterated my demand of Secretary Hegseth in front of all 100 senators that he allow every senator to see the unedited version, the unedited video of what happened on September 2nd. He refused. The administration came to this briefing empty-handed. That's the major question that we face. And if they can't be transparent on this, how can you trust their transparency on all the other issues swirling about in the Caribbean? Every senator is entitled to see it. If there is no problem with sources and methods, because the senators will see it in the skiff. I also believe that every American should see an appropriate version of this, of the unedited, they should see an appropriate version of what happened on September the 2nd. I saw it. It was deeply troubling. In my Gang of Eight meeting last week, I asked Secretary Hegseth, let every senator see it. He said he'd think about it. Today, he came up with no answer and no tape.
So
his reasoning was that it might give things away that shouldn't be. I respect classification. When you do it in the skiff, that argument is undercut. It's just with senators in the skiff.
Can you help us understand if they gave any rationale of what the end goal of these strikes actually is? I imagine.
Look, that's the sad, and I sat through this briefing once before last week. We do not, their policies in the Caribbean are unclear. We don't know what the limits are. We don't know where they'll stop. We don't know what the ultimate goal is. The president says different things at different times and contradicts himself. That's why we need full transparency, at least to the 100 senators, and much more transparency to the American people. We don't want another endless war. We don't want to stumble into something, and given Trump's erratic back and forth on this issue, I worry about that. So do many Americans.
It's a weird commentary by Chuck Schumer for a couple of reasons. First of all, endless wars are not Donald Trump's thing. Stopping endless wars, that's Donald Trump's thing. Endless wars are Democrats and, well, Lindsey Graham's things. John Rutherford, for example. There are lots of Republicans who make lots of money off of war, and they will like the endless wars. Donald Trump isn't one of them. Donald Trump wants endless peace. It's more his forte. He finds that there's more money in real estate development than there is in the military-industrial complex. But Chuck Schumer, he says everybody should see this video. Everybody should see this video of these people getting killed. It's troubling, but at the same time, he didn't say it was illegal. Sure, it's troubling. It's troubling to see anybody get killed. But you know what else is troubling? When you think about the 25 million, watch 25,000 Americans get killed from fentanyl. Watch 25,000 Americans die at parties or in the hospital or at bars or just on the street or at home, wherever, for no other reason other than they came in contact, some of them unknowingly, with fentanyl. And that is something that's truly disturbing. That's really deeply disturbing, but Chuck Schumer doesn't seem to care about any of that. He just wants all of the senators. He wants all the senators in the skiff, and he wants them all to see the video, and he doesn't want anyone to tell him no, least alone a former Fox News weekend host that goes by the name of goes by the name of Pete Hegseth. Now, like I said, Marco Rubio said these things are going to continue. We're doing our job. Donald Trump is fortifying his position by calling these now weapons of mass destruction, which is really, really exciting. And he's moving forward with a firm resolve to make this a key issue and Venezuela a key issue leading into 2026. And it plays into Donald Trump's favor. It plays into the Republicans' favor. It plays against the Democrats. Think about what the argument here is. The Democrats, once again, are arguing for the criminals and against the victims. The Democrats are arguing for the criminals and against the victims. Donald Trump is trying to say, let's protect Americans. Let's protect Americans who are dying from drug overdoses. And the Democrats are saying, no, let's protect the illegal narco terrorists who are clinging to the boat in the water. Tim Burchett said there's like 100. There's been like 100 killed, 3 per strike. So there've been like 33 strikes, let's just say. 33 strikes on 33 boats, 100 people killed. And still, every single boat that Donald Trump claims comes to the United States of America carries enough fentanyl to kill 25,000 Americans. When you multiply 31 by 25,000, hold on one second, let me do that again. 25, what do we say? 33 times 33 equals, that's 825,000 Americans. That's almost 1 million Americans that have been saved by these strikes. And the Democrats are arguing against that. How do you do that in a midterm election? How do you say, vote for me so 1 million Americans can die, but 100 narco terrorists can live? Would you rather? I mean, this is really what the Democrat Party is saying. The Democrat Party is saying, we would rather 100 narco terrorists be alive today than 1 million innocent Americans. It's an interesting trade-off. I'm not sure how it works in an election year, but there's people crazy enough to think that that's actually the right platform. And that's what's really scary. People crazy enough to think that that is absolutely the right platform. And that is the wrong thing. I mean, I'm just going to say, I would never, that's not my platform at all. My platform is, and again, it's not a war. These guys are not Venezuelan military. We're not attacking Venezuelan military assets. We're not, blowing up ammo dumps or airfields or anything like that. These are gangs of drug dealers in private vessels bringing drugs to America, and they're being blown out of the water. There's nothing warish about it. It's a preventive measure, and it's not an attack on Venezuela specifically. So these endless war people, the president has no war power. Only Congress has the power to declare war. Great. Donald Trump didn't declare war against the drug dealers. Donald Trump didn't declare war against Tren de Aragua and MS-13. But guess what? I mean, he didn't specifically, but he did, from an agenda standpoint. But guess what? Congress doesn't have the power to do that either. Congress can't go in there and say, we would like to declare war against criminals. We would like to declare war against drug dealers. The war on drugs was not an actual war. Also, it was pretty ineffective. I know because I lived through it. Donald Trump also has another issue, and this is something that they alluded to in the Vanity Fair article. They talked about, where is it? Here it is. This was one of the things that I agree with, or I believe in the Vanity Fair article was true. On the morning of November 4th, 2025, that was when the election in New Jersey was going on. That's when the election, the Democrats won all their elections, and they turned it into like the second coming. They turned it into some kind of new American revolution because they won. We won all these elections we were supposed to win. We won in New Jersey. We won in Virginia. Big whoop. We won. Was it Prop 50 or whatever in California? We won all these elections. We are the best. That's what the Democrats were running around doing. And Suse Wiles said she was in a meeting with Stephen Miller, Marco Rubio, JD Vance, and the president. And the two things on the agenda were the filibuster and Nicolas Maduro. Now, the filibuster is important, and this is something that President Donald Trump is continuing to push. It's an uphill battle, of course. It's an uphill climb because there's a lot of senators who are dumb, and they believe that the filibuster is a good thing and should remain in place because they're afraid that one day the Democrats will come back to power and they're going to want to utilize the filibuster. The only problem is they don't realize that the Democrats have already said we're going to get rid of the filibuster. We know that because they tried last time. And the only two senators that stopped them were Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema, neither of whom are still in the Senate. And there's not one senator, maybe John Fetterman, if he makes it that long, maybe John Fetterman would be the one senator to actually stand up and say, no, it is wrong what you with the filibuster away do with. He might actually get up and say that could be something that John Fetterman would say, verbatim probably. The filibuster is something whereas that you need for the sanctity of, and I agree with President Trump, and the Democrats should, with the filibusters, no, gotta do when we have it. That would be John Fetterman's stance on it, and I would agree with that 100%. But there may not be, if the Democrats ever take control again, enough Republicans and John Fetterman to stop them. And so Donald Trump says eventually it's going to happen. They're going to get rid of it. We need to be ahead of the curve. We need to be ahead of the ball game. We need to get rid of it now. We need to get rid of it now. We need to do it now. And that way we will be in control. And he said it again yesterday at the White House.
Republicans should knock out the filibuster, and we should approve a lot of things. You wouldn't have January 30th looming because, you have the 30th of January looming. You know that, right? And if we knocked out the filibuster, it would be just a simple approval. But you have some Republicans, they're unable to explain why. If you ask them why, they're unable to explain. They cannot win the debate. But they should knock out the filibuster. And frankly, they should get rid of the blue slips too.
Blue slips, filibuster, get rid of all of those unconstitutional controls that Senate has. And think about it this way. The Senate has over the years, over the decades, given themselves controls so that they have more power than is granted to them by the Constitution of the United States of America. And then they turn around and they say President Donald Trump's trying to be a dictator. President Donald Trump's trying to be a king. President Donald Trump is trying to take power away from Congress. These are congressional powers. The president has no right to do any of the things that he's doing. Well, guess what? Congress doesn't either. Filibuster's not constitutional. It's just something you guys came up with. These blue slips, that's a dumb tradition. I don't know why that's even a thing. Why are we giving senators individual power over judicial nominees just because they happen to be from their own state? That makes no sense whatsoever to me. But again, over the years, over the course of the United States of America's sordid past and history, there have been senators and Congress people that have done whatever they need to do to make sure that they continue and they remain in power. And those are some of the things that are happening behind the scenes. Donald Trump says, get rid of it. And some senators are starting to turn. It used to be, I think there were very few senators who were in tune with President Donald Trump when it comes to getting rid of the filibuster. I know Tommy Tuberville, but he's on his way out. One of the latest is Oklahoma Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. Mark Wayne Mullen, who now just recently, I think it was on, where was he, on Fox News with, what's his name? I think he said yesterday he's now in favor of Donald Trump's proposal to knock out the filibuster.
Going to have to nuke the filibuster in the Senate. The argument being that if Democrats ever win back, they're going to do it anyway. So if Democrats win the House, they end the Trump agenda, essentially, for the final 2 years of his presidency. So get everything you can get done, if you're not worried about politics, in the next 9 months, nuke the filibuster, enact the agenda.
Well, the president has said that. He's talking about all the time on nuke filibuster. Problem is we're still playing politics. It's an argument to be made. I kind of leaned on the side of, for a little bit of going, well, should we really nuke the filibuster? Because once you do that, it is nuclear. It goes nuclear. It opens the door wide open. And I was like, why would we open the door wide open for the Democrats? But I was in a meeting with leadership just recently, in fact, last week, and I brought this point up, guys. Does anybody in this room believe that the Democrats aren't going to nuke the filibuster? And if they do, what they're going to do is they're going to go after all the courts. They're going to try to pack in the courts, not with 13, not with 11, but now they're saying 23. And you're going, okay, if we know they're going to pack the court, if we think they're going to make Washington, D.C. a state, Puerto Rico a state, maybe Guam a state, and that why wouldn't we just go ahead and do it anyways? Because we're not interested in the politics of it. We're interested in the policy of it. Why wouldn't we install good policy? The argument was then, well, but they will undo everything we did, to which I said back to him was like, okay, how do we know they will undo everything we did? Because if it's sound policy,
and they do undo everything we did, and it put us in havoc, then maybe it'll backfire on them. Because if we believe they're going to do it, then why don't we just go ahead and get it done and do what the president's wanting us to do to put all this policy forward? And so there was a conversation that's taking place that's saying, well, maybe we don't do all the filibusters, but we just do it when it comes to appropriations. Well, that's where the policy is made through appropriations anyways. I think that's a sound policy for us to have a serious conversation about, because we only have 3 years here. And the president is laser focused on setting a foundation for the golden age to be rushing in and set it up for whoever the next vice or the next president is going to be. Is it going to be JD? Who knows? I'd say right now JD's probably the front runner. But if you set the foundation, a solid foundation for somebody to build on, because you don't have to worry about a re-election, which is the advantage that the president has, then let's go all in. And I'm in that favor where you're at right now is let's go all in. Let's get this thing done, because we're not going to get immigration policy done with bipartisan support. It's not going to happen, because the Democrats are never going to give us a win on this. We're not going to have good, sound policy when it comes to reforming the Unaffordable Health Care Act with the Democrats. They're not interested. I mean, we see what they've done. They want to do a clean 3-year extension on a failed policy that has a 90% fraud rate on it. That's horrible. 10% is horrible. This is 90% fraud rate on it. And yet they want to do a 3-year clean extension on the premium tax. And so we know they're not interested in it, so we need to do it by ourselves. And so my position on the filibuster has changed.
There you go. My position on the filibuster has changed. That was a very wordy explanation, but basically what Mark Wayne Mullen is saying is, look, there's a bunch of different things we can look at. One of them is the filibuster on certain pieces of legislation, but not all, on just appropriations bills, blah, blah, blah. I say get rid of the whole thing. I'm not one of these mamby-pamby piecemeal type people. The filibuster is not constitutional. The filibuster has probably stopped a lot of good legislation over the years. Maybe it stopped some bad legislation too. But the fact of the matter is, you have to get, I think maybe even without the filibuster, maybe voters would be better suited to make decisions, or maybe they would make better decisions, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Think about it this way. If there were no filibuster, potentially you would have Americans making decisions that were more in line with what they wanted. You know, they might send people to Washington, D.C., and they might keep it more even, Steven, so that we don't get in a position where we would need the filibuster in the first place. I doubt it, but, you know, that maybe potentially could happen. On a personal note, or on more of a private note, the President of the United States yesterday had some very good news regarding his son, Donald Trump Jr., who is very interesting. I remember when Donald Trump Jr. used to date what's her name? She's now the ambassador of Greece. You know the one that went up and started yelling, "The best is yet to come." What? I just totally blanked. Kimberly Guilfoyle. Thank you. Kimberly Guilfoyle and Don Jr. dated for a long time, and she went out and campaigned and she yelled, "The best is yet to come," to an empty room during COVID, which was iconic. It's an amazing moment. And then apparently things, they kind of, relationships just kind of go, sometimes they fall apart, sometimes they crumble. And then she was shipped off to Greece as the ambassador to Greece, which is not a bad gig. I mean, I'm not saying that's a bad gig. That's a great gig. That's a great gig if you can get it. But that's what happened to her. They got her out, and Kimberly's living it up in Greece. And now Don Jr. is engaged to his new girlfriend, Brunetta, Bratilla, something.
Not often that I'm at a loss for words, because we usually do the ranting and raving really well, but this is a little different. But I just want to wish all of you guys an incredible holiday season, a Merry Christmas, a very Happy New Year, and to thank Bettina for...
Bettina!
One word, yes. It's almost, when you go down there and it's like you're going to go and you're trying to ask and you're not sure what the answer is going to be, it's always a little bit rough. But she said yes, so that's a big win for the end of the year. Would you like to say something, Bettina? We'll see if she's any good at this. This is trial by fire.
Wow, what a privilege it is to be here in the White House, Mr. President. Thank you so much for hosting this incredible party. And to our First Lady, these decorations, am I right? Are they unbelievable? This has really been the most unforgettable weekend of my life, and I get to marry the love of my life, and I feel just like the luckiest girl in the world. So thank you, and thank you, Mr. President. Thank you.
Yeah. So her name is, by the way, her name is Bettina. Hang on, I got it. Bettina Anderson. She's a socialite, and she'll soon be Donald Trump Jr.'s wife, which is, not a bad gig if you can get it. If he's willing to hire you, I think that's something you should jump at. But what's really interesting is that he's not the only high profile conservative who got engaged. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who is leaving Congress in January, also got engaged. Look at this. This is from the Washington Post. This is actually kind of a funny headline. Marjorie Taylor Greene and Donald Trump Jr. got engaged, and in parentheses, not to each other. In a romantic coincidence, two of MAGA world's top luminaries locked down marriage plans within days of each other. Love is in the air for prominent conservative figures Donald Trump Jr. and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who both announced separate engagements on Monday. President Donald Trump's eldest son got engaged to socialite Bettina Anderson. His spokesman, Andrew Sarabian, confirmed to the Washington Post after the news broke at a White House holiday party Monday night. Not often. Yeah, we heard the clip. The engagement, blah, 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 blah. The two had been engaged since 2020, a few years after Guilfoyle grew close to the Trumps and became, they're talking about what's her name? Kimberly Guilfoyle. Here we go. Turning to the other big love story in MAGAland, Brian Glenn, chief White House correspondent for the pro-Trump network Real America's Voice, shared that he got a yes from Greene, the outspoken Republican congresswoman who will be leaving her position in January following her rift with the president. In an interview with the Post, Glenn said that although the proposal was a shock to Greene, it wasn't a total surprise. The couple, who met in 2022 and started dating in early 2023, had been thinking about marriage for a while, he said. Greene helped design the engagement ring while they were in Texas on a trip, so I guess it wasn't too much of a surprise. Glenn popped the question to Greene while grabbing a quick 5 p.m. dinner at their favorite restaurant, Joe's Seafood Prime Steak and Stone Crab in D.C. That's definitely a Marjorie Taylor Greene. When you're from Georgia, any place called Joe's Seafood Prime Steak and Stone Crab, that's going to be your top. That's going to be one of your top choices. For the reservation, they sat at their usual table tucked away in a corner. Glenn had come from the White House, and they squeezed the date in before Greene had to cast a vote on Capitol Hill at 6:30 p.m. After sharing the news with their families, Glenn went public with their engagement on social media, along with a picture of him and the Georgia Congresswoman grinning from ear to ear. I think we have the picture of that on X. There they are. Yep, there it is. Brian Glenn, she said yes. And you may recognize this guy if you watch, was America First and all those kinds. If you watch all that, you'll look, there they are. It doesn't look like they're having, neither of them appears to be having prime steak or seafood. But hey, whatever. Very happy, very cute couple. He wrote, she said yes. Chief, Real America's Voice. That's what it is. You've seen this guy a bunch, and now he's going to be Mr. Marjorie Taylor Greene. That is really. I wonder what that's going to do for his relationship with the White House. And not that should ever be a consideration. Like, if you love somebody, you love somebody, right? If she says yes and you want to marry her, that's great. You guys go off and be happy. But you got to think, is now really the best time? I'm the chief White House correspondent. Marjorie Taylor Greene and President Donald Trump hate each other.
When you told President Trump about this, can you tell us a little bit more about what his reaction was?
Is now the best time for me to be getting engaged to the president? I mean, I would never think that. I just think, let's do this. But I'm sure there's some ambitious people out there who would be thinking, I don't know if we should be doing this right now. Maybe wait till 2028. Let's do. Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're engaged now, but the wedding won't be till 2028. I could see that happening too. But look, I mean, it is. It's love is, I guess, in the air for MAGA hopefuls in December. I guess Christmas, and it gets you thinking about the future and whatnot. Also, Donald Trump. This is a story that I've heard a couple of times now. JD Vance, who clearly is the pick for vice president in 2028. In fact, even Marco Rubio in the New York Post said again he's not running in 2028 if JD Vance runs. I think this is something we'd heard before, but there was a new article again in the New York Post that Marco Rubio said, I'm not going to run if J.D. Vance is going to run. And that's because Marco Rubio knows he's going to be chosen as vice president. And he would be the first Hispanic vice president, which would be very exciting. Except Kamala Harris may have been Hispanic. She was everything else. So she was Indian, she was black, she was a woman. So she could potentially have claimed Hispanic hair. I don't really know. I don't like look at her 23andMe or anything like that. But Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance seem like they're primed for a 2028 run. And J.D. Vance, this guy, he's going out and he's telling some stories and he's hobnobbing and he's working the crowd and he is Donald Trump's right-hand man and he's a decision maker and he is assertive and everybody loves the guy. And he wants everybody to know after this whole, the whole Rob Reiner thing, everybody's all up in arms still about Donald Trump's post about Rob Reiner and how he had TDS. And conservatives and Democrats alike, Whoopi Goldberg on The View. I'm not even going to play you Whoopi's response because it's just so ridiculously over the top. Like I get that you're angry. I get that you're disappointed. I get that you're mad. I get all of that. But Whoopi Goldberg is just, she's an Academy Award winning actress. And I don't know. Do you want to see it? Does anyone really want it? Do we want to see it? Maybe I'll play it just so that nobody claims that I'm biased. Okay, here we go. I guess is this it?
There is no justification.
No. Oh wait, that might be it. Hang on. I should have probably pulled it. There's a couple of Whoopi clips. One of her is having to apologize for for lying about President Donald Trump. Maybe we'll play that one. Oh, here we go. Yeah, this is Whoopi Goldberg. This is her yesterday having to make a correction because she didn't get her story straight. By the way, she makes a lot of corrections. You may remember when she had to make that correction about Nazis at Turning Point USA.
I'm going to make a correction here. As it turns out, yesterday, apparently, who put his condolences out to the people who are looking down at us from heaven and the folks at Brown. But this is how he followed it up.
About Rob Reiner.
So, my bad, you did say something. Not what I would like to have heard from you, but you did do it. So, there you go.
Okay, so that was Whoopi Goldberg. She was having to retract her statements because she said President Donald Trump did not say anything about the victims at Brown University. They were all so upset. They were all so upset about the Rob Reiner thing. But again, she had to apologize after she'd gone off about Trump and Rob Reiner. Hang on, let me see if I have that. I was trying to find that one because that was the over the top one. If I can't find it, we'll just move on with our day. Whoopi. It's so funny because every time you look for one Whoopi Goldberg clip, you find like 20 others that all have to do with her apologizing to President Donald Trump. Oh, here it is. No, that's not it. You know what? Forget it. I don't even care. Let's go back to the actual news. So President Donald Trump and his post about Truth Social, J.D. Vance wants you to know this guy does not change. He's not two-faced. He's not one guy in front of the camera and one guy behind the camera. They're always screaming and yelling about transparency. Donald Trump is transparent. What you see with Donald Trump is what you get. What Donald Trump says, he means. If Donald Trump says something behind closed doors, you gosh darn better believe he's going to say it in front of a camera. And J.D. Vance has shared the story a couple of times. He's cleaned it up a little since the last time I heard it, but it's a great story.
Behind the scenes. What's going on actually behind the scenes of the Trump administration? And I'll tell you, the president is exactly in private who he is in public. Like, I'll tell you a little story. Maybe a week or so ago, I walk into the Oval Office and Marco and I are sitting there talking with the president about something. He says, stop. And he looks at our shoes and says, you guys have terrible shoes. So he goes and gets a shoe catalog. Now remember, this is the Christmas season, so the president's got some holiday cheer. He goes and gets a shoe catalog and gets his favorite shoes and orders like 4 pairs of shoes for me and 4 pairs of shoes for Marco because he's like, we need our vice president or secretary of state to look their very best. And, then we went back to talking about whatever major, international issue we were talking about. Again, he is exactly in private who he is in public. That's not true of most people in Washington, D.C. It's not. And I've seen so many people who will say one thing to the president's face, Democrats and Republicans, and then will do the exact opposite behind the scenes. You know why I really, you know what they are, and you know why I really love Suse Wiles? Because Susie is who she is in the president's presence. She's the same exact person when the president isn't around.
Yeah. So there's J.D. Vance. He's talking about how everybody in the White House is exactly the same person you see them for and hear them about. Whatever it is you think you know about President Donald Trump, you think you know about President Donald Trump. By the way, the first time he told that story, he talked about how there was another person in the room. He didn't mention names, but I think it might have been Mike Johnson. And the other person in the room also got shoes. And when asked about their shoe size, they said, my size is I wear size 7. And Donald Trump looked at J.D. Vance and he looked at Marco Rubio and he looked at this third person in the room and said, you know, you can tell a lot about a guy by the size of his shoes. And that's the way the story went the first time I heard it. I guess he's cleaned it up for the audience. But I think it's Mike Johnson. Speaking of which, Mike Johnson was asked about President Donald Trump's comments. Again, here's what he said. Here comes Mike Johnson. He's coming into the rotunda. The reporters are gaggling around him.
Mr. Speaker, do you condemn Trump's post about Rob Reiner?
What are your thoughts about what President Trump said about Rob Reiner at his press conference today?
I don't do ongoing commentary about everything that's said by everybody in government every day.
We are the president of the United States.
We are trying to bring down health care costs for the American people. They're very important votes, very important issues, and that's what we're focused on.
A lot of your members are criticizing him.
I gave commentary this morning, and you all heard it. Thank you.
Yeah. So there's Mike Johnson again saying, look, we have bigger problems. We have bigger fish to fry. Why are we focused on this? Why are you focused on a Truth Social post about Rob Reiner? Why aren't you focused on the problems that are facing all Americans, like inflated healthcare costs, like inflated, costs of this? Why aren't you working with us to work to lower these things and to make everything better for Americans? But again, the media, they're just looking for the clickbaity headlines. They're just looking for the salacious tidbits that they can use to sell. I don't even know what they sell anymore. Is it newspapers? Is it just getting clicks on the web? I guess it's clicks on the web. I guess that's what they're really looking for. And that is something that Donald Trump is not going to stop doing. I mean, look, Donald Trump is going to be who he is. Suse Wiles is going to be who she is. You can rest assured that Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance are going to be who they are. Marco Rubio may be a little more buttoned up. He may be a little bit more political because that's kind of his thing. Marco Rubio has been a senator for a very long time. Marco Rubio has never been one to, kind of play the way Donald Trump does with the media. He's opening up a little bit, but you never know. By the time 2028 rolls around, he may be. He did have a couple of back and forths on CBS, Face the Nation with what's her name, Margaret Brennan, and it may continue. I sure as heck hope it does, because whenever somebody fires back at the media, whenever somebody fires back at the press, especially somebody from Donald Trump's administration, then that's when you really get to see. That's when you really get to see and understand what they're going to be like in the future, and if they have what it takes to lead in this world where the media is not just an unbiased fourth branch of government, but now totally in the bag for and a propagandist department for the Democrat Party. Speaking of the media producing propaganda for the Democrat Party, Joe Biden got a $10 million advance for a book. Okay. Now, there are jokes about the auto pen, of course. I'm sure the auto pen's going to write it. I'm sure this, that, and the other. Joe Biden has secured a $10 million book deal for his presidential memoir. Memoir, as I recall, is short for what is it? A remembering. Right? Isn't that what it is? Like you have to remember something. And I don't know if Joe Biden remembers anything. I don't know if Joe Biden remembers anything. This came out earlier, by the way. This is from July, but apparently it's in the works now. And Joe Biden is, I don't know, it just makes me, after what we saw from the Eagles game, it just makes me kind of laugh that anyone would purchase or publish even a Joe Biden memoir. The big news of the day, though, probably, and I've been holding on to this, is the meeting yesterday that we teased between Candace Owens and Erica Kirk. A lot of people are a little upset at the way this meeting went. It went really well, apparently, or it went well. I don't know, really well. Candace Owens and Erica Kirk finally met, and Candace Owens, after the meeting, posted this. Erica and I had an extremely productive 4.5-hour meeting. 4.5-hour meeting. I think we both feel should have taken place a lot earlier than it did. We agreed much more than I had anticipated. Of course, we also disagreed on various points and people as well. Most importantly, we were able to share intel and clarify intent. That's interesting to me. We were able to share intel and clarify intent. I will, of course, have a full rundown for you all tomorrow as I am currently exhausted, but I wanted to quickly let you guys know that absolutely nothing was held back, and the immediate result was that tensions were thawed. So apparently, these two ladies got together for 4.5 hours, hashed out whatever differences they had with each other, and tensions were thawed. And now they can move about their day, or they can go about their day. Really, I'll be honest with you. It seems to me like a lot of stuff happened. A lot of people were...
4.5 hours later, I'm alive. I'm totally fine, and I'm sorry. I was going to do a show for you guys this evening, but I am truly exhausted. Very productive conversation. I asked every single question. I mean, from Egyptian planes to Turning Point USA Faith, and I was very surprised by some of the answers that I got, and I think they were also very surprised when I shared certain intel. This probably should have happened a very long time ago, but I wanted to let you guys know that I am alive, and I will have the full rundown for you guys tomorrow of what transpired. And yeah, I think it was definitely a very big step in the right direction. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay, so that's Candace Owens saying after 4.5 hours, again, 4.5 hours, they met, and she said that she was surprised by some of the answers she got from Erica Kirk, and that Erica Kirk was surprised by some of the information that she shared. So maybe Candace Owens had actual information that Erica Kirk needs to tighten up her inner circle, or maybe there's people that don't have her best interest at heart. I don't know. But it seems like this was a huge, could have been a sleepover type, instead of making this public and airing all this dirty laundry and coming up with all of these theories and destroying all of these people's lives and livelihoods, instead of tearing, this whole movement apart, dividing MAGA heading into an election year, trying to pit people against Charlie Kirk and his wife and his organization, which has done a lot of good. Instead of all of that, maybe they just could have, the first time Candace Owens heard something troubling, she could have picked up the phone and called Eric and said, "Hey, I heard something troubling. We should talk." That didn't happen. Candace Owens turned on her microphone and started to unload to the masses, and they never actually talked to each other until yesterday. Now, moving forward, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that it's going to be, whatever it is, it's probably going to be. I mean, look, Candace Owens, as Erica Kirk rightly pointed out, succeeded. She made a lot of money. She got a lot of downloads. She got a lot of listeners. And in the process, Tim Pool had his studio shot at by somebody, driving by, because maybe they thought he had something to do with Charlie Kirk's death. Maybe they thought he was benefiting from Charlie Kirk's death. Again, there's good marketing and bad marketing, and I know there's no such thing as bad publicity, but sometimes there's just bad intentioned publicity, which maybe what this is all about. I don't know. Maybe I'll listen. I haven't listened to Candace Owens' show for a very long time. Maybe I'll listen, or maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just read the highlights on X like I usually do. I think that's probably the way I'm going to go. Anyway, you should definitely listen to my podcast. If you haven't heard our morning podcast, we do one every single morning called the 47 Daily, and it's an update so you can get updated as soon as you wake up in the morning, bright and early, and you can find out everything that's going on with President Donald Trump and the administration and the things that are necessary for you to know. And then, of course, tune in every single day to Mark K Saves the Republic, just like you did. And the best way to do that is to subscribe. It's to make sure that you're subscribed to this channel, you're subscribed to this podcast, so that you are always getting the latest, greatest information, the truth, the unfiltered and unvarnished truth, as told by a somewhat sane person and delivered right to you. Whether you're listening to the podcast or watching online somewhere, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you hit the little ding-a-ling. Make sure you hit the bell. and tell whatever platform you're listening to, I want more and more and more of Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, because we are going to keep bringing it to you every single day so that you're informed, you're enlightened, and you're inspired to keep up the fight, so we can save the Republic.